Gabe, you first here, because a few hours ago, the White House put out a tweet saying, in essence, Garcia's never coming back. What can you tell us?
That's right, Alex. And just a few moments ago, President Trump in the Oval Office was blasting Senator Chris Van Hollen for going down to El Salvador. And this is a fight that the White House wants to have. They, again, on social media and several interviews over the last several days, have been really painting this narrative that it is Democrats that are focusing on this alleged gang member. And even just now in the Oval Office, President Trump reading from a list of accusations against Abrego Garcia. And once again, you see right there a post just a short time ago from the official White House account on X saying that Abrego Garcia is not coming back, even though the Supreme Court ruled that the administration should facilitate his return to the U.S. Now, Alex, in just a short time ago, we also heard from the president. And he was asked about this report that several migrants in Texas, at a facility, an ICE facility in Texas, had been told that they could soon be deported under the Alien Enemies Act, the ACLU, filing paperwork overnight trying to stop that. The president was asked about that specific report and whether they would be deported. President Trump said he didn't know specifically about that case, but he said, if they're bad people, I would certainly authorize it. Our people voted for me to get them out. A judge wasn't elected to do that. I was elected to do that. And I've just been told that we have some of what the president said about Senator Chris Van Hollen, again, just minutes ago. Take a listen.
He's a fake. I know him. I know them all. They're all fake. And they have no interest in that prisoner. That prisoner's record is unbelievably bad. They talk about how evil I am, that this man would be thrown out of our country. This man is according to certified statements that we get, is a very violent person. And they want this man to be brought back into our country where he can be free and to stay as a happily Maryland, they call him the Maryland man. He's a Maryland father. No, this is a violent person.
And again, Abrego Garcia's family has repeatedly denied that he is a gang member, and his attorneys have questioned the credibility of that confidential informant that some of those allegations are based on. But there you saw it, Alex. President Trump and his administration really taking Democrats to task over what they see as focusing on the wrong person. The president mentioning once again the story of a woman in Maryland whose daughter was murdered by an undocumented immigrant. This, again, is a fight that they are trying to keep. They're trying to argue that, again, we are not the same, and they see it as a winning issue, something that the president believes he was elected to do, Alex.
Yeah. Absolutely. Gabe, thank you for that. So, Lisa, I want to play for you. We did hear from the president, of course. Gabe played that sound for us. I want to also play for you what Tom Homan said this morning when he was asked about Garcia's deportation. Here's that, everyone.
The administration has admitted it's a mistake. All parties have admitted it's a mistake. Do you admit that it's a mistake? And is this something that should not happen again?
Look, I don't agree with the term that was a mistake. We believe that the withholding order is set aside now that he's a terrorist because it doesn't pertain to those designated terrorists. He is a member of MS-13. 2 federal judges have decided that. We have a police department who documented that. ICE intelligence has documented that. The El Salvadoran government says he's an MS-13 gang member who has since been designated as a terrorist. So the entire condition around that decision have changed. The facts have changed. So we don't think the withholding is in play anymore.
Is he making a valid argument there, Lisa, that essentially the original order went out the window once he was designated as a terrorist?
Well, first of all, MS-13 was designated as a foreign terrorist organization on February 20th of this year. Okay. At the time that Mr. Abrego Garcia was placed on the plane and admittedly sent to El Salvador and imprisoned there in what the administration itself has called in court papers an administrative error. Nobody had made that determination. This is an ex post argument that they are making to try and justify that administrative error and sort of unwind it now. But you're asking me, is that a valid argument? And I want to answer you by reading the words of Judge Harvey Wilkinson. He's a judge on the Fourth Circuit who yesterday upheld, or at least denied, a stay of Judge Paula Zinnis's order to order discovery about exactly what the government has done to facilitate Abrego Garcia's return.
Yep.
He writes, and Mr. Wilkinson, by the way, I should note, is a long-standing stalwart conservative.
Absolutely.
And someone that people refer to as a feeder judge. That means someone who sends lots of their clerks to the Supreme Court. Over the last 25 years, I can think of very few conservative jurists who have been as well received by the Supreme Court as Mr. Wilkinson. He writes, the government asserts that Abrego Garcia is a terrorist and a member of MS-13. Perhaps, but perhaps not. Regardless, he is still entitled to due process. If the government is confident of its position, it should be assured that that position will prevail in proceedings to terminate the withholding of removal order. Judge Wilkinson suggesting there that it's not as if the government can snap its fingers and evaporate that withholding of removal order, that it would still need to go through the legal mechanisms to remove the withholding of removal order itself, have him declared a member of a foreign terrorist organization, and therefore no longer eligible to be protected from deportation to El Salvador.
And the fact that you said perhaps or perhaps not, that indicates that the law has not proven irrefutably that he is what the Trump administration is alleging.
That's correct. To the extent that there's been a determination in immigration courts that he is a member of MS-13, it was done in the context of what's called a bond hearing. That doesn't mean that the government was put to its burden of proof the same way it would be in a criminal proceeding, for example. And when it went up to what's called the Board of Immigration Appeals, that's in the immigration court system, the appeals court, that court defers to the lower court's factual findings. It does not sort of renew an investigation of its own. It just says, we take it on good faith that this is a determination that the initial immigration court made. This is far from the kind of factual findings that normal courts make in criminal cases, Alex.
Which brings me to you, James, because we're talking about a man who was neither charged nor convicted of any of the crimes in the U.S. and whose courts have ruled. I mean, we're hearing this. She's citing the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals yesterday, that he is entitled to due process prior to deportation, right? So what do you make of all this back and forth about whether or not the deportation was even a mistake? I mean, the DOJ has admitted that it was. Help us understand what's going on.
Well, Lisa's comments are spot on, and I'll go to a much lesser authority than the Fourth Circuit. The movie A Few Good Men came to mind as we listened to that Tom Homan quote, where he says, we believe that. It doesn't matter what they believe. It matters what they can prove.
Right.
And what they have proven is nothing. They have proven that they are able to make unilateral, arbitrary claims about an individual. That is not the purview of the executive branch. And in the clip that we played from President Trump there, where he says that I was elected, the judges weren't elected, that's absolutely correct.
Sure.
He wants the judges to respect the results of the election. He needs, in turn, to reciprocally respect the role of the courts. This is about Abrego Garcia, but it's not just about one individual. It's not about whether he is or is not a criminal, although that is very important because it is the thing that he has not been afforded, which he is entitled to, which is due process. But it is about whether or not, as Americans, this isn't left-right ideology. And Judge Wilkinson's opinion in that court order yesterday is really written directly to Chief Justice Roberts. It is a love letter to the Chief Justice and to the rule of law. The question is not, are you a fan of Abrego Garcia? Do you think he should be here? Do you think he should not? The question is, do you want to live in a country where the rule of law matters? Simple as that. This is as fundamental as it gets. The executive branch does not get to unilaterally decide whether someone is guilty or innocent.
So, Tim, to you know, because I want to get your reaction to what we're seeing out of the White House over the past 24 hours. I mean, not just that mock-up of the New York Times that we're showing on the screen here saying that Garcia is never coming back, but they also put out a tweet showing Garcia and then the mother of the woman murdered by a different immigrant from El Salvador, perhaps trying to conflate the two in some kind of way. What do you make of the messaging here?
Well, it's gross, for starters, but they think that it's a political winner, as Gabe pointed out. I don't think the Democrats should be intimidated by that, the fact that they think it's a political winner, because there's many weeks and months until the next election. So I think the Democrats and Senator Chris Van Hollen should continue to fight back against this and not be silenced by the White House's attempt to bully people and to prey on people's emotions, using this really tragic death of the young woman that was killed by an undocumented immigrant. But if you're the White House, you'd rather talk about this than tariffs. You'd rather talk about this than your failure to negotiate a peace in Ukraine, even though you promised that you'd do it in 24 months. You'd rather talk about this than the failing stock market, right? So that's why they are doing this. But I don't see it as bait, as some people do. I think Gavin Newsom mentioned that he saw it was bait and wanted to focus on other issues. I think that this is the fight worth having right now. If you want to live in a country where people do not just get whisked off the street and sent to a foreign prison camp without any due process, then this is the moment to have that fight, whether or not it's a fight that the White House thinks is politically beneficial to them or not.